Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for April 5th through 11th. This week I read 2 books, I watched 3 shows, I listened to 1 podcast, and I listened to 1 book. First this week I finished the absolute tome that is Night Film by Marissa Pessl. This is almost a 600-page book, and I didn't realize before I started reading it that the chapters, sometimes they're very, very short, and they don't go to the next page before you start the chapter, so it is a very condensed book. It is also the book that the community chose for me to do my first Spectacular Standalones vlog, which is a series I'm starting where I read a book from cover to cover and take you along on that entire process. So that vlog is coming up. That vlog is almost an hour long because there's over 100 chapters in this book, but it's happening. So this book follows a journalist named Scott. About 5 years ago, he got into a little bit of legal trouble when he accused this cult director of being basically a heinous person. And because he didn't have any proof for what exactly he said, he was sued for $250,000 and basically lost his career. Cordova is also a very elusive director. Nobody's really seen him in public for a very long time, and now in the current, his daughter, who is 23 years old, dies, and basically Scott decides that he's going to investigate this case as kind of a way to get back into what he was investigating before his career imploded, and his personal life imploded soon after that, and all of these things. Through this book we learn a lot about Scott and his personal life, and we learn a lot about Cordova, or at least as much as we can, because it's hard to find details on this man unless you're just looking at all of his films. He's put out 15 films, but some of them are not in the mainstream at all, so you have to get illegal copies of them if you want to see them, and they are horror movies and they sound quite terrifying. This book gets dark and spooky and sometimes a little bit witchy, so look forward to that reading vlog because that will be up next week. This week I also read the first season of Always Human by Ari North. This is a webcomic. I will try to link it down below because it was beautiful and I highly recommend it. This webcomic is set in the future on Earth in a time where you can easily make modifications to your body. You can make modifications to how you look. You can use modifications to help you remember things. You can make all these different types of modifications, and our main character does that all the time. She loves changing her look. However, for the last 4 months or so, she's noticed this girl on the subway platform that always looks the same, and this intrigues her. One day they end up having a conversation. We find out that this girl can't actually use modifications because she has a disease that doesn't let her do so. Firstly, this webcomic is drawn absolutely beautifully. The use of color and negative space and internal monologues mixed with the dialogues of the characters is just absolutely beautiful, so I highly recommend it just for that. This is also a female-female romance between those 2 characters. We have other queer rep in here as well. We have other cute side characters that are just adorable. And I'm so glad that the Dragons and Tea Book Club picked this as their pick for this month because it's obviously very accessible given that you can read it online. And this had wonderful parallels and direct talk about disabilities and what it is like for one person in a relationship to be disabled and the other person not to. It's wonderful, it's intersectional, it's beautiful, go read it. One of the TV shows we watched, obviously Friends, is always on in the background, so we finally got to Paul Rudd. We've been waiting many seasons to get to Paul Rudd. We also recently saw Brad Pitt and Alec Baldwin, and it's just fun to see all these people that we know from all sorts of other things pop up on this very popular show from 2 decades ago. Chad and I also started watching this TV show called Tales from the Loop, which is based on this silent graphic novel of just this interesting town and what happens there. And that in itself is incredibly vague, and that's because a lot of really weird sci-fi things happen in this town of Mercer, Ohio. Essentially, a lot of the town works for the Loop, which is this underground company, and by that I mean literally underground. They go underground to go to work, and they make the impossible possible there. Each episode kind of narrows in on somebody who lives in the town, and there are some very interesting things that happen. I ended up guessing a few of them, especially in the very first episode. I was like, oh, this is what's going to happen, and I was right, and that was just weird. Go into it knowing that this world looks like our own, set in the past, but is definitely more technologically advanced. And then my roommate, who's been living in our bachelor's suite for a month without me, because I haven't seen him in an entire month at this point, and I watched an episode of Better Call Saul. This is the show that we set up a video call and we watched together because we're a big fan of it, and it's just a great way for us to spend some time together even though we can't even hug each other and it's weird. This episode actually had an opening from the time frame of the end of Breaking Bad, so that was interesting to go back to because my brain didn't immediately understand where Jimmy was, so there was that. This week I also listened to 2 episodes of Our Plague Year, episodes 5 and 6, because that's what came out this week. This is a podcast by Joseph Fink where he gets people to send him essays or just call into a hotline with how things are going for them right now in this interesting time. If you ever just need to have a really good cry about what's going on in the world, listening to one of these episodes gives you a very good space to do that. And finally, for a nonfiction book club, I listened to The Personality Brokers. This is a book about the women who came up with the Myers-Briggs test, although they would be very mad at me for calling it a test. I didn't really know anything about the creation of this test before. I just knew that it was something that would sort you into 16 different categories. I can never remember which one I am. I just know I'm definitely an introvert, and then the other ones I'm always like 57-43, so does it really matter in terms of percentage between the 2 options? There's also tons of articles about how you can use this for good or it should be discredited and all those types of things, so I kind of knew about that going in. I didn't know it was created by a mother-daughter team. I didn't know that they did a bunch of unethical things. I didn't know that one of them was basically writing Carl Jung fan fiction. So I learned a lot of interesting things about the creation of the test and what was going on in the world at the time. Basically the biography of these 2 women. It's probably not something I would have picked up, and it's definitely not something I would have completed if I wasn't listening to it specifically so I could watch the live stream on Nicole Sweeney's channel, because Nicole and Deboki started a nonfiction book club where on even months they'll do a social science type of book, and on odd months they'll do a hard science type of book, because those are basically their areas. And I know I'm not going to be able to read every book for this book club just because they won't be available to me because libraries are closed, but I do plan on tuning in for all of those live streams and those discussions because these hosts are just wonderfully smart and I just love listening to them talk about basically anything. Just before I go, I wanted to mention that this is the last day that I am 33 years old. Tomorrow is when I turn 34, so I have a special video planned for that. This also reminds me that when I was 29 turning 30, so exactly 4 years ago today, I made a video where I kind of was trying to say something deep about moving into a new decade. And even in the video, I think I basically said that no, it doesn't really feel that monumental. It just feels like continuing to go on 1 second per 1 second. Although I haven't actually watched that video since it went up 4 years ago, so who knows what I actually said in it. I do know that I was in Mexico at the time with my mom, and I'm going to link it down below in case you want some weird nostalgia. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know that you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you are on your keyboard. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!